Hey everybody, welcome to another video. That's Wednesday again, so let's do another week of Marvel Comics from 1985. Specifically, we're going to look at April 3rd of 1985, this is going to be the 13th week? No, 14th week. 14th week, week 14 of comic books. So I say this in every video, I'm recording this a week early, so technically we're still in week 13. I just posted the week 13 video this morning on YouTube, so go ahead and watch that one. But this is going to be for next Wednesday, which will be week 14 of 2025. So we're pretty much right on the money 40 years ago to the day-ish. Again, I think, check the calendar here real quick. Let's see, next month will be the 2nd on Wednesday. What do they put it in at? The 3rd. Okay, so again, I think it's going to stay like that for the remainder of the year, so maybe I'll stop bringing that up, but looks like it's within a day 40 years ago. I don't know how much that changes over the years. I never really paid attention to it. Tell me if you guys know. Is there like a certain interval where like we're right on the money to a certain time in the past, where the days exactly fall right on the dates fall right on the exactly day of the the week, or is it something like they're always off by one? I don't know. Like I said, I've never put any thought into it. I just noticed that when I started doing these videos. So, all right, we're not going to get into that. Forgive the bandage here. I didn't get any fights, so nothing cool like that. I've got this skin issue, and you've probably seen it in most of my videos. The doctor told me it was rosacea. Sometimes said, "Oh, a guy of your age and your skin, your skin complexion's common to get rosacea." I've looked up rosacea, and this does not look like rosacea. To me, it just reminds me of acne, and that's how I've been treating it. Like it's 1985 again, and I'm 12 years old. I'm pretty much treating it the same, and it's been going away, and it comes back and it goes away. Now, a couple of theories about this. My son is 13, and I thought maybe we use the same pillows sometimes, stuff like that, so maybe like his oil gets on it and it gives me his acne. But the last time I was at the doctor, we pretty much narrowed it down. It's just adult acne. They said it's usually stress related. I'm super stressed out because nobody's subscribing to my channel. No, that's not really the reason, but I do a lot of stress as we all do. This is just one of the things. So this one, it was a little extra egregious, and I figured I'd spare you the gore, so I just put a bandage on it today, and we'll call it at that. So in case you ever wonder. All right, going back to this. Again, I tried to find most of these comics, and I tried to read most of them. And I'm going in a direction now, and I'll tell you as I go here how it's kind of evolving. And I remember this. I'm repeating. This is Groundhog's Day, because this is exactly what happened when I was 11, 12 in 1985. I can't remember what year it is or what year it was. And this is, I kind of, when I first got in, I was like, oh, it's kind of like a kid in a candy store, how I am with this. And then as it kept going, and as I got into it by a couple of months, I would say definitely by the end of 1985, I knew what I liked, and it wasn't everything. In fact, it was probably 20% of what was coming out every week by Marvel. Put a pin in that, because I brought this up before, and I want to say how that correlates to today. So let's just jump into it. I got the sites pulled up. Again, we're going to use this fandom site. I should look on how you get here, but like I said, the easiest way to do this, if you want to go to this specific site, look up, look up week 14, 1985 Marvel Comics fandom. It should bring you right to this page, and then you can navigate the different weeks and years above as you see that. Because like I said, going on this site, just go to this fandom site and you hit the search bar. This site is very convoluted. Now, maybe I'm just an idiot and you guys have figured this all out and you know how this works. Let me know how it works because I've got it bookmarked, and I've got the one bookmarked, and I just kind of go to it from there. So I got my foot in the door where I can kind of remember my place, and that's how I navigate it. There's also a DC one. Again, I'll repeat, the DC one only does it by month. They don't break it down by week, which I find weird. And I'm probably going to do one for a DC one for April, and I'll just do one video which will cover, because literally, you want to talk about 20% of Marvel I was reading like 2% of DC at the time. But all right, let's jump into these, and I'll pull up the ones that I did recently go back and reread, or try to reread. And case in point, let's go to the first one here. Let's go to Alpha Flight number 24. Pull this up in the folder. This is just a raw scan. This isn't a nice fancy, omnibus version. And I gotta say, I used to love, let's just put it this way, I didn't necessarily love Alpha Flight back in this time period, but I loved the idea of it. And at the time, until I realized that John Byrne was the writer and artist, I didn't know, and this is a John Byrne issue, I didn't know that it was his. I also didn't realize that they were Canadian. Even, Vindicator or Guardian has a giant maple leaf on their outfit. I didn't know that when I was 11, 12 years old. I mean, I barely knew where Canada was back then. Well, yeah, Canada's north of us. Oh, like up North Michigan? Northern than that. Where's Toronto? What's to the east of us? Oh, like New York? Northern from that. Anyways. But I really liked a lot of the characters when I'd see the characters, specifically characters like Box. I always thought was so cool looking. Puck was always kind of weird to me, but I thought like the big P on his chest. Some of the other characters I could care less about, and we'll get into particular in that one with this comic here. But I really liked Aurora. I liked the girls in this one. They caught my attention right off the bat, especially Aurora, and especially in the short-haired version, which was in the Marvel Universe Handbook. Coming up in the fall of 1985. But and of course Heather Hudson, which took on the mantle of Vindicator after her husband, the Guardian, got creamed. So spoiler alert. Again, I shouldn't even need to say this. These are 40-year-old comics. I guess spoiler alert when I come to stuff, but I mean, if you haven't read these by now, you should go back. If you're a comic book fan, you should go back and read these. And, if you don't want spoilers, just let me know in the comments. Say, hey, don't spoil it for us. I'd like to go back and read this fresh. Okay, fair enough. So, this is the first one right off the bat. I kicked into it. So I go, good, Alpha Flight. Here we go. As I was reading, of course, it says right there, John Byrne, story in pencils. I got into it. I was like, okay, there's Aurora, there's Puck, it's John Byrne art. A lot of reading. I didn't realize how... I thought Chris Claremont was verbose. But Byrne... I don't know if Byrne had a chip on his shoulder or he had something to prove, like, hey, I'm good at art and I'm good at writing. Blah! So I'm just going to fill up the panel with lots of words so I don't have to draw. I don't know if that's the case. Just speculating here. But... there's a lot of words on these pages, and I'm not trying to say that I don't like a lot of words, but when you're just going on about gobbledygook, words, very little of it drives the plot along, and it's just a lot of just word salad. You lose me, and I like Talisman. I think she's cool looking. She's very attractive. However, it's her father. I think it was her father. The shaman, John Two Young Men, which sounds wrong, but anyways, I have nothing against, like I said, I have nothing against Indian. I call them Indian, but of course now they say, the proper nomenclature is Native American, but I say Indian. I'm not against that whole thing. I mean, in fact, growing up as a kid, I always thought that was cool. And obviously, I like his daughter. Well, there's no reason not to. And of course, like Danny Moonstar, I think she's cool because she's got the braids and the dark hair and the head, the headband and stuff. I always thought that looked cool, and I liked her thing. But I had to say, maybe it's just because he's a dude, but when it goes heavy into shaman on any comic, and it's not just Alpha Flight, I just like, it's a snore fest. And even, Aurora's legs there, and was not enough, and there's her legs again, were not enough to keep me interested. It's funny, just on a side note, and I'm not going to get into anything woke or anything about this, but I remember I was going to school one morning. My mom had the 79 Sunbird at the time, so when we lived in the trailer, and I want to say I was in 9th grade, and she was taking me to school as a freshman in high school, and she had the radio on, and it was talk radio, whatever, in the morning, and she said, oh, there's just a news announcement. Marvel makes an official announcement. I'm like, oh, what? What's this all about? I've never heard that on the radio. I never heard them talk about comic books. So I was just like, what's going on? And they just wanted to let everybody know that officially North Star is gay. And I'm like, okay. Like, I wasn't like, oh, it wasn't like, oh, I was just like, okay, that's the announcement. Oh, I thought it was going to be something cool, right? Like, literally, it didn't, I was 14 at the time, maybe 15 possibly, I think 14. It didn't even faze me. And this is back when, that would have been 1987, 88, being gay was still not socially acceptable, especially in high school, for a high school student. And I was like, okay. I just thought there was going to be some other grandiose thing that they're going to announce to talk about Marvel comic books on the radio. That's let's say Marvel was underground, but there was no internet. It rarely was talked about on television. There's no real promotion behind any of this outside just going to the bookstore or seeing a spinner rack, or maybe even, by that time finding a comic book shop or a convention. I just remember when I saw this page popped up. It reminded me of that story in my mom's car that one morning going to school. I don't know how far I got. I think after Aurora decks her brother, I think I might have gotten to right here where he pulls out this staff out of his bag of holding, apparently. And I got about to here, and I think I was going to start the chapter 2. I got up to go to the bathroom or something, get something to drink, and I came back, and I'm just like, I don't know if I can finish this one. This one's really boring. And then I looked at all the word salad coming up, and then of course, and I don't blame him. Byrne was doing a lot of comic books at the time, and he was on FF at the time. I think he was filling in some of the other comics. So, but when he really did a lot of light in the Alpha Flight, did not have to draw anything. Although he does follow it up with this, but drawing this stuff, me being a comic book artist, I can tell you this is tedious, but it's mindless work. Like, to draw this page, outside of just initially laying it out, it's tedious to draw all those little lines. It's obviously it's more tedious for the inker, but it's just mindless work. So you get this page, which is, I opinion, phoned in, and you get this page which is just, it's tedious. It's not like it's not a lot of work, but it is kind of mentally phoned in. And again, right here, he likes to do his tech stuff, and I'm not taking it away from him. He does it well, a good job of it, and it's time consuming. That's time consuming. But there's probably a gazillion mistakes, and even the inker probably made a ton of mistakes on a lot of this stuff, and you can cover it up. If it's that visually dense, if the line work is that, or line mileage as they call it, there's that many lines, you can cover up mistakes, you can really flub it in certain areas, because who's really going to notice unless you're really paying attention? And people just standing around is, they're flying now, and more gobbledygook. It looks cool. This character, all in black and white. Talk about the colorist. Man, the colorist must have, he hit the lottery in this one. It's like, what? I just got to color Snowbird's hair in her blue and maybe a little bit of Aurora. Some of a little bit of skin tone on North Star, yeah, count me in. Give me the paycheck. That's all I gotta say. The inker, on the other hand, is like, oh, come on. It's got, like I said, I just couldn't finish it. I'll probably go back and finish it. If I'm going to keep reading Alpha Flight, which, again, this happened in 1985, is I got these comics, and I was like, I like them. I like the characters, but I don't really like the comics so much. So let's go back. Let's leave Alpha Flight aside. Let's go back to one that I did read, and that would be Amazing Spider-Man number 266. Sorry if I didn't mention that. It's Alpha Flight 24, and this is a Byrne issue. I think he does up to like 30 or 33, I think, and then he's off the book, and they've got another creative team. But Spider-Man 266, this isn't a bad comic. I'm not going to say that, but I mean, at the time, where are we at here? Spider-Man. There we go. Let's pull this one up. So I'm going to go to my full screen. That way you can see it a little bit better. Fills out the screen a little bit more. Doesn't have the distracting gray bar at the top. It's black Spider-Man costume, so I'm sold right there. You don't have to do much. An issue where the two antagonists are Toad and Frog. I said this earlier. I said, why don't we have the villain of the week type of thing? That's fine. But to be Toad and Frog, to be your villain of the week, I guess technically Frog's not really a villain in this. And I didn't know a lot about Frog. I had this issue, and I remember I probably had a very similar reaction reading it as a kid. But I guess this is I'd have to look this up. This is the origin of Toad, who obviously is more known for being with Magneto in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, or I don't think he was in Freedom Force. I know he was in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but I didn't know this might have been his origin story, because it's like he's gonna kill himself, or maybe he already has the powers. I don't know. Let's just go over. Peter David doing the art, Sal Buscema, or Buscema, however you want to say it. Again, I love his brother John, Big John, but I think Sal is so underrated. I'm probably going to say this every time Sal Buscema comes up. I'm going to talk about how underrated he is. I mean, he was a workhorse. He wasn't as good as his brother. Obviously, he took a lot of cues from his brother, his older brother, I think. Or was he the younger brother? I can't remember. But Sal, his brother was a workhorse. They're both workhorses. I mean, they come from a different time period, and obviously they knew then that they had to make rent, and there's a lot of jobbers. I call them jobbers too. These are great artists that built this whole thing, but most of them were kind of like me. I mean, I got to make rent, and I'm going to try to be innovative. I'm going to try to do good work and always turn in my best. But I wasn't expecting to become a rock star, and I don't think these guys either. They were just like, you got to make rent. I got a family to support. I got a wife to make happy. Blah blah blah. I put food on the table, and that's and living. I think there were stories where I don't know if Sal. I'm assuming Sal lived in New York. But I know John Buscema didn't like driving into the city. He was trying to work from home. But back to the comic. I read all this one just recently, over the weekend, and great art. I mean, it's classic Spider-Man. I don't know. He's back in the red suit. Oh, yeah, sorry. This takes place. This jumps around in time, so that's why he's in the red suit. That's why I thought it was an origin story, and I'm pretty sure it is. Like, Black Cat shows up briefly, and then they talk about that he's already dumped Black Cat by the time he reappears. And, of course, he comes back, and now he's Black Spider-Man. Again, I'm not going to give a lot of the story away, so you do have something to look forward to, but obviously there he is in full Toad glory. The art's great. It's written well. It's paced well. I mean, mechanically or mathematically, it is textbook Marvel Comics of this time period, and just textbook classic Marvel or classic comics in general. It's art's done the Marvel way, yada yada yada. This is kind of funny, this little sequence here. However, the characters involved are just kind of. As you can see, Peter's on the prowl. Now he's got a hot blonde neighbor that he's trying to put the moves on too. It's just kind of funny. This is after he dumped. I believe he dumped the Black Cat. I saw something to the effect, it's like, hey, we work terrible together, we can't work together, so I'm going to dump you, because that's all. She only liked him. She didn't like him because he's Peter Parker. She only liked the Spider-Man character. He didn't like that. And then if he just was around her when he's Spider-Man, they wanted a working relationship and, obviously with benefits, and it didn't work out. So he's dumped her, and he's not hooked up with Mary Jane yet again. So, obviously Gwen Stacy's dead. So he's on the prowl, to get some hot young, well, I guess he's young too, but you get this hot blonde who moves into your building, and she's touching. What did I say? I say this in every video. I'm trying to teach the young people listening. Look at the first panel. If she does that, if you're a young dude, right, and you meet some woman, whether it's, wherever you meet her, doesn't matter where you meet her, if she grabs your arm, she likes you. Women will not touch you, won't even, I mean, they literally will repulse in horror if they don't like you. But if they make any physical contact, and especially skin-to-skin contact, they like you. So just take that as some advice from an old man. So anyways, now the Frog shows up. He's mad at the Toad for stealing his shtick. I mean, it's hokey. But again, like I said, that's a classic horizontal panel there with all the guys shooting. A lot of a series, they call it a triptych on top. You got triptych of 3 vertical panels with all medium shots. They call it an action triptych. The same thing on the bottom. You got an action triptych, and then it's sandwiching a horizontal shot, which is also a medium shot. Again, his brother was known for doing a lot of medium shots. I'm sure it's probably why Sal does a lot of medium shots, but and that's been it's always a criticism on these guys. I think these guys are masters. There's nothing to criticize. But back in the day, they got criticized by doing too many medium shots, and I've gotten criticized for doing too many medium shots. If you're a comic book artist, I wouldn't go crazy with it. I would probably, vary it up. These are all medium shots for the most part. I mean, at least you got a bird's eye, you got a worm's eye, another worm's eye, looks like a straight shot, worm's eye, maybe a worm's eye, definitely a bird's eye. If you vary your camera angles, even if you're going to do all medium shots, although arguably that last panel is a long shot. I say arguably the first panel is a long shot too. Nah, it's not a long, it's still a medium shot. Medium to long. The whole part about comics is you got so many panels on a page, you got to vary your panels as much as possible to, to not be so stagnant and not be so repetitive with your types of shots. Because back in the day, you show that to an editor's just going to rip your stuff apart. So nowadays, I think it's, as long as you've checked the right boxes, I think they don't really look at your art. Yeah. But back in the day when you really had to know your shit, you had to know your shit, and they would tear you apart, and you wouldn't get it. I got my ass reamed multiple times by people on, on my, how I was doing at the time. So you got to have a thick skin too. Let's see, the Black Dragon. I have it in here. We'll take just a quick look at it. I'm starting to realize, I said this earlier in, as I started doing these videos, that I was kind of into these epic titles. The art's great. A lot of open, this is another thing that's nice, is 3 panels on a page, 4 panels, 5 panels on the page. if you're going less than 6 on a majority of your pages, and say your average panel count is 4, you've got these nice open panels. And obviously with this background, it's very easy just to, you know, you could phone in the backgrounds on these, and it's really the focus is on the figure. So doing things out in the desert is really nice, you know. You got a lot of black in here to show, you know, this dark scene. You know, nice panels, you know, nice shots. It looks great. It looks very Prince Valiant. You know, I think that's probably where how they're kind of going for. But I came to read it, and I'm just like, oh, you know, I don't know if I can do this. And you know, I'm starting to feel that way. All of the epic titles, they didn't excite me as a kid, and they don't excite me as an adult 40 years later. Sorry, I'm recording this at lunchtime because I thought maybe I can cut down on all the yawning if I still, because lunchtime I'm still pretty much, I just ate, even though I kind of go into a food coma. I'm usually not dead tired till the afternoon, so I'm kind of pausing my work to do this video real quick, and which hopefully doesn't go too long. But I guess unless I do this like bright and early after down my first monster, I guess there's no, and then I'll just be like a more chatty catty than I am now. Maybe it's just the camera. Maybe it's just talking a lot. I spent the morning talking to no one, so now I'm talking to you, which essentially talking to myself. Maybe that's, you know, makes me sleepy. I don't know what it is. That's not a good panel down there. That face is not good. But I didn't read this one. You know, read it. Tell me what you think. I've kind of lost my interest already in the epic stuff. And again, this is how it went back in the day. Captain America comic. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but at the time, I read this one, but I really half paid attention to it, and I really didn't catch my attention because I did not have this particular issue. I literally, up until like I think in 90 or 89, the comic book store name had a big bundle of like all these Captain America issues right around this time, like a whole pack of them for like $5 or $6, and there was like maybe 30 comics in it, and I ended up buying that. I remember it was a Sunday, and I went back. I saw it on a Saturday and went back up there on a Sunday and bought this pack because it had such a big run of Captain America. I believe any of the key issues were probably pulled out of that pack, so I don't know what key issues were at this time, but you know, I don't think against Captain America. I think Captain America's a cool-looking character. You know, these classic Marvel, these classic comic book. You know, even going back to the Golden Age, but you know, Captain Britain's in there too. I thought he was cool looking, but it's kind of a sleeper comic. Oh, I can't remember who the guy's name is. That guy. Not the. Is it Bucky? Oh my gosh, I must have really been asleep when I read this. Is that Bucky? No, isn't Bucky dead? Oh, Nomad. Nomad, that's who it is. Which the Nomad is Bucky, I thought. Oh, Bernie. No, he's saying Bernie to his wife. Bernice, probably. I can't remember what is going on. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention to this part. She's got to call him by name. Jack. Okay, so it's not Bucky. Nomad. I vaguely know about Nomad. I mean, more so from the Marvel universe, just by coming across them. But he's a very DC looking character. The art's great. Who does this? This isn't Zek yet, is it? No, it's Paul Neary. Okay, that's why. And Paul Neary's a great artist. I really like Neary's work, and you can see, you know, he's great. So the artwork's spot on. You know, the characters are appealing. The girls are attractive. You know, Madcap's in it. You can't really not know Madcap. Madcap's kind of stands out. And look at that. That's a great upper panel there where he's hanging off the light post, and you got that whole crowd scene with all those cars. That's nice. That's not phoning it in. Neary's not a phone it in kind of guy. Great face. Great. Almost looks like Wonder Woman on top there. That dark with the blue black hair. red lipstick and the eye is pretty nice looking. I guess she's just a checkout girl. It's pretty hot checkout girl. Of course, I guess that's the nomad there. I guess, hey, I'm Dirk Squarejaw, and I'm the bagger at the grocery store. Back in the day, that might have been the case. You might have come across that. Today, you're not gonna, maybe you'll find some young, attractive girl at the cash register. Maybe some young dude who just doesn't want to be there. Dude. But I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but Nomad Madcap. It's technically the Nomad Madcap. I think that's why I wasn't kind of paying attention. It's like, well, Captain America's barely in this. But I'm going to skip real quick because I don't want to keep you on this for a long time. But this last page. So I was like reading and I realized, oh, it's the last page. And I look down and I see Anaconda. And of course, Black Mamba and the Death Adder. Is that what his name is? I can't remember. But this is the Serpent Society. I love the Serpent Society. I think they're cool. Whenever I see them, and they really play a huge part. They're in a lot of Captain America issues, and I think it's building up to that time period where I did like those because I had them after the fact, and I went back and I read through them. I was like, oh, I really like these. A lot of it's predominantly girls in the group, and I always liked my girls, especially by that time, and a lot of leg. Even though Anaconda, she's a big girl, but she's still attractive. But I like snakes and I like hot girls and I like legs. What can you say? You're sold me on the Serpent Society. So let's go to the next one. I did read this one. Sorry. This is Dazzler number 38. Remember, I had a bunch of Dazzler comics without the covers, and I probably had this comic too without the cover. I'm not 100% certain. The story didn't ring a bell, so I probably didn't read it if I did have it. Remember, I was saying my aunt Zola May, my grandma, my mom's sister, so my mom's aunt. She was addicted to her romance novels, and one thing she also liked, she liked comic books, and her son Todd was a huge Conan fan. Kind of person, even before my friend Jason, who got me into Conan. But anyways, Zola would go to the book exchange or wherever she got her books. Not the K's that I started going to, but a different one. I think it was out of a different city. It's up north, I think. I'd like to know where she went. But anyways, she'd go there and she'd have a grocery bag, a paper grocery bag, and she would take all of the fantasy or all the romance novels that she read, and she would trade it in, and she would get credit, and she would buy a whole bunch more romance novels, and that was one of her favorite things to do, is sit around romance novels. But she also liked comic books, and her favorite comics were Archie comics. I mean, obviously, she was of that age. Archie comics, and she liked the female characters. I did too, for other reasons. She liked them just because, she liked her female characters, and Dazzler was one of her favorites. And she had a lot of the Dazzler comics. But the thing is, the comics she had, the person who was running this exchange was obviously getting new comics, and once she didn't sell, back in the newsstand days, you would rip off the cover, you'd send the cover back in, and you'd get credit. For that, so you didn't have to pay for the unsold copies. The publisher would eat the cost on that. But you still had the comic. It just didn't have a cover. So if you still wanted to read it, you could. Well, what that woman would do is she would save all of those and put them in grocery bags. And she would, trying to get any kind of money for it, she'd put $1 for the whole bag. And my Aunt Zola would buy them. And she'd buy a whole grocery bag filled with Archie comics, Dazzler, Spider-Woman, stuff like that, and Miss Marvel. And she would buy them, and she would read them, and she'd give them to her son. If her son didn't want them, she'd give them to me. I remember she'd show up at my grandma's house. Timmy, that's my grandma's voice. They're all from Kentucky, so they all had that voice. She goes, oh yeah, the Southern, they talk like this. They had almost like a Dusty Rhodes voice. Dusty Rhodes. and she'd say, I got a bunch of these comics of some Dada comics in here. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'd go through, and a lot of the Archie ones I'd flip through kind of. I kind of liked Archie a little bit, but my dad was really into Archie comics. But most of the times I just kind of ignored them because there's so many Archie ones, but I would pull out anything Marvel in there, and I would pull out the Dazzlers. And I'm not 100% certain, but I think there's a lot of Conans in there because I think her son wasn't keeping them either. She'd get a lot of Conans. Her son would read them, and they'd put them back in those grocery bags, and then I would get the grocery bag filled with comics. So at that time, I was getting, and that was actually before I started collecting comics too. So I was getting a lot of comics that way too. Oh, sorry, we gotta go through the comic real quick. Blah 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 blah. There we go. Did I pull it up already? I thought I pulled it up. Yeah, I did right there. Okay. It's kind of neat. It's got Wolverine and Colossus are in it, so it's very heavy X-Men. Essentially, somebody said because I've got this haircut that I looked like Dog the Bounty Hunter. Speaking of Dog the Bounty Hunter, this guy here, I can't remember what his name is, he's a bounty hunter, and he's got the white hair, long white hair, so there we go. I'm cosplaying as this guy, Dog the Bounty Hunter. That's not his name. His name's Rob, or Buddy. I can't remember. No, it's Drinking Buddies. What was his name? I can't remember what his name was. Anyways, he's obviously looking for his bounties. He comes across this guy, and then he has a job. They talk about he's got a job to do. He's got to hunt down and get somebody, and of course they find out he's going to hunt down Dazzler. There's Colossus, which isn't the best drawing. Who's Paul Chadwick? Vaguely know about him, but he was Jackson Geist in the ink. See, the Jackson Geist should have did the pencils. It would have been a lot better. And it was not uncommon to see a lot of really good pencilers just making some extra cash. Because remember, they're all jobbers back then. They were just, I need some extra cash. You want me to ink a comic? I got time to ink a comic, even though I'm drawing 2 other ones. I would just take the work. I kind of do the same thing now. I don't really turn down work because I need the money. So I basically take any job I can get. Comic book related. Or, drawing comic books. But, anyways. So they're kind of charged. That's a weird panel, that overhead worm's eye. We're looking down at Wolverine. Almost looks like he was going to dig his claws and take out the little Rasputin there. Anyways, Dazzler's there. Of course, Dazzler looking good with her short hair and her headband and her aerobics gear. She's at a hotel. These guys are like, "Hey, you got to come out and play another show." She's like, "Hey, this is my time off." Blah blah blah. They get in kind of an argument. She ends up roasting the one guy, this big thug that he kind of has his muscle. Kind of roasts him with her light powers. A lot of Dazzler's butt right in the camera too. A lot of leg. Sorry, I'm a sucker for the legs, so I'm going to go right to it. I love that Doc Martens light peach color. Anyways, Wolverine shows up, and they're kind of there to tell her, like, hey, I can't remember why they're there. No, that's right. So it'll go back. So she challenged them. She says, hey, if you guys both can take me, wow, that's a pretty egregious shot there in that third panel, that bird's eye with that flash, with her, what do you call it, her tail feathers in the air like that, upside down. Anyways, where was I? Colossus, she kind of challenged them, like, if you guys can take me, then basically you need to shut up, I'm X-Men worthy. And so I guess that's what they're doing. They're taking her up on it. And they're coming to get her. Yeah, they're talking about here, like they're having a discussion whether they should keep her in the group, yada yada yada. And then she comes and she issues them the challenge. I don't know if this is the first appearance of that costume. It might be. I'm not sure on that one. I'd have to check. I think it is, though. I think it's the first appearance of that new costume. Maybe not. Which is the costume she kind of had for a pretty long time. Not the old roller skate outfit, but this is like her 80s costume. mean, it's funny. She kind of like, when the whole Jim Lee thing, they really, and it might even be pre-Jim, I mean, they really kind of brushed her under the rug for some reason. I don't know why. She's a great character. And she's Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift, mutant with mutant powers of light. But again, I probably have this in an omnibus with a better color or whatever, but it's a good comic. The artwork could be better. Like I said, if you were to take the story, and the story's fine, I like the story, you would replace the story with Jackson Geist on pencils and maybe the other guy on inking, I think it probably would have been a stronger book. I do like this too on the top, though. You got two, essentially, they're not close-ups. I would still call that a medium shot. But you've got these two closer medium shots of Wolverine, fighting her with the claws, and then you've got this open, no panel border lines, and all white back. I like, and then you got the floating letters, but you still got the crops of where the panel would be for the word balloons. I like that a lot. That's very classic comic. I like to use that when I can. It's neat. So it breaks up a page. The page looks too, like, throw a couple of those panels in it, and it breaks up the page real nice. And then basically Wolverine's like, yeah, whatever. Cyclops makes a guest return here at the very end. So it's a pretty decent comic. I'm not a huge fan of the Dazzler series, but some of them are pretty good. I gotta say that. Oh man, where are we at? Oh, she's almost an hour. We're gonna skip a bunch of these. So let's skip up the Doctor Who magazines. We're gonna skip those. Anything Star imprint, unless it's something I really like maybe like the Silverhawks, and even then I'd probably skip them anyways. But the Ewoks, I'm definitely gonna skip. I have the Indiana Jones issue in my list. I did not read it. I gotta say this. I liked Raiders of the Lost Ark. I liked Indiana Jones. I liked Indiana Jones of Last Crusade. Saw all of them in the theater when they came out. I had some of the old Indiana Jones action figures. I had the trading cards. I don't think I really had any of the comic books. I'm not a huge Indiana Jones fan. I don't hate it. It's not like, oh God, Indiana Jones. I don't really roll my eyes. It just, again, there's certain things to me are like sushi. I like sushi. I don't crave it. I don't go out of my way to get sushi. But if somebody's buying, and this way with beer too. I'm not a drinker really, but if somebody says, hey, I'll buy you a beer, okay. I don't dislike beer, and I can enjoy it. I'm not going to go out of my way to buy it. I'm not going to go out of my way to drink it. But if somebody says, hey, I'll buy you a beer, or hey, I'll get you some sushi, I'm not going to turn it down, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm that way with the Indiana Jones. It's just like, if it's there, but I just couldn't, I was like, I don't think I'm going to read these. I really couldn't get into it. Oddly enough, I don't think, sorry, this will speed things up. I don't think I read any of these. Did I read the Power Pack issue? Can't remember. The Micronauts, again, these are the new Voyages. I've read these before. I had this one. I'll give you a rundown which comics I bought off the shelf. But I didn't go back and reread it. I don't know, I just came to read it and I'm just kind of like, let's look at the artwork real quick, just because that's one thing I always used to like about it. Sorry, it is. Let's go to the artwork, because I got the omnibus version pulled up with the better color. But this is issue 10, New Voyages. You got Marionette on the side there, and Commander Ron. I mean, I like the art, and the art's. It's not that the art's, mind-boggling, but the reason I like the art was just because of just certain ways they would do things, especially with like Croyer there, and then even with the ships, how they kind of did the ships there, made them look a little bit more like rock, which looks pretty cool. Who is doing the artwork? This is Peter Gills of production, so I'm assuming Gills on writing and Kelly Jones artist, and then Bruce Patterson on inking. It's inked really well. I gotta give it that. The artwork's a little, it's of its time, but I like it. You know, obviously, how can you not like Marionette? I mean, she's definitely showing some skin in that outfit, and it's very visually, whoa, over the top costume. But I can't remember the big brute guy's name is. Oh, I forgot at the time. He wasn't one of the original ones. It's kind of a character they brought in later. I can't remember his name. But Bug and a Croyer I always liked a lot. This person really likes their ladies. I gotta say, drawing fishnets, I'm doing fishnets, a lot of fishnets, nets of fishing right now in a commission, and I don't have any, I think they look great, but whew, they can be tedious to draw, especially to get them to kind of flow around the curves and everything right, and instead of just making it look very checkerboard, you know, very like cut and paste. It's kind of hard to do. It's not super hard, it's just tedious, and it really kind of slows you down a bit when you come to doing the fishnets, but it looks, you know, visually appealing. But, oof, that's Commander Ron down there. His head, what happened to his head? It got hit with a shrink ray. Oh yeah, Bug shows up, smooches this chick. I do remember reading this back in the day. I don't remember exactly what the story about, and I didn't reread it, so I didn't fresh up on it, but, oh man, look at the neck on him. Wow, there's some panels where this guy really had some tunnel vision when he was drawing some of these panels. One thing you got to do, I don't know why I don't like this comic. I mean, there's obviously, this artist is thinking along the same lines as me a lot. But anyways, one thing you have to do when you're, especially if you're drawing traditionally and not digitally, and I would say you got to do this digitally as well, is you got to step back after you've laid out a page. You know, if you got stuff penciled in, or even if you're doing the thing where you're drawing the stuff on scratch paper and then light boxing it through to the bristle board. Again, digitally, you got a lot more freedom and a lot more tricks and stuff you can pull, but regardless of whatever medium you're using, traditional or digital, you got to push back. With digital, it's nice, you can flip it, which is nice, or with paper, you just hold it up to the light, you know, the window or television or something, or a light box, get a light box, and just see how it reads with the other, you know, flipping the axis of it, or mirroring it, or just hold it in front of a window, hold it in front of a mirror and look at it too. There's always that. But like I said, with the digital stuff, it's easy. You just hit a button and it mirrors it. But look at it. Step back, look at it. If something looks off to you, like you got like, oh man, that neck is way too long, or hey, I mean, I just had to do this because I'm doing a parody right now of Secret Wars 2, and a couple of the characters are like, ooh, something's going on with this character, and I don't know what it is. And luckily with digital, I could easily fix it, but I had to look back and really kind of gauge what was wrong with it, and I had some necks are way too long, and I had to fix those. So I definitely, don't draw with your, I mean, I draw with my nose. Don't draw with your nose through the whole thing, and then never go back and check and go right to inks or right to whatever and go finish the drawing, because you're going to step back and you're going to go, oh. So I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but, you know, I would say maybe the guy's pressed for time. He's putting a lot into these panels, too, so maybe he was close to missing his deadline. Didn't have enough time to go back and fix some stuff. I don't know, but there are some wonky panels. I mean, those are nice panels, like that real close up on the eye. That looks really nice. But there are some bad panels. And again, you know, you're a comic book artist. Look how many drawings you're doing on any given time. It's just like playing baseball. You're going to strike out. You can still be a superstar at baseball, you know, or you can be a superstar hockey player, whatever. You're not going to hit the goal every time. You're going to hit the crossbar. You know, you're going to get checked. You're going to fall. Even though you can skate really well, for some reason the ice rink is haunted, and the hockey ghosts end up, you know, upending you, because it happens. Trust me. I used to play hockey. For no apparent reason, you just be skating along, standing there, and all of a sudden you're seeing the ceiling of the ice rink, and you're like, what just happened? There's nobody even near you. It's the ice rink ghosts. They just came along and hooked your foot and down you went. But what I'm saying is that you can't always knock one out of the park every single time. You can't always score the goal. You're gonna run into some bad panels. It just happens because you're just doing with the amount of artwork that you're cranking out. You're gonna have some stinker panels. Just try not to have that many stinker panels. At least not while you're trying to get the job. Maybe after you've got the job, you can phone in a little bit. But sorry. Let's see. What are we on? All right, we're hitting on it. Okay, we got 10 minutes, and let's keep it under an hour because there's not much left to say here. Power Pack. Did I read it? I know I have it in there. Did I read it? I'm trying to think. We'll look at it real quick. It's a raw scan. I don't think I read it. I never read this back then, and I thought maybe I'd read it now just to see why I didn't like it. I guess when it comes down to it, I don't like a comic book with... I don't mind like teens, but I don't like comics with children. It's just doesn't appeal to me. It didn't appeal to me when I was a teen or a tween. I don't like that word either, but and it doesn't appeal to me, as an adult. Even though I've had a child at this age at one point, not that long ago too. But I don't know. That's Kitty. That's a weird looking kitty. Well, not too weird looking. I've never seen that costume before. It's not too dissimilar from her Shadow Cat costume. It's just the colors are different. But the artwork's not bad. I mean, it is of its time. Again, remember I was saying that whole, I don't know if I was telling on the last one or whatever comic I was talking about, where it's like anything Morlock related, these are the Morlocks, anything under the sewers of New York and the Morlocks and stuff like, I always just thought that was interesting. It always made me think, like, are there really Morlocks down there? Are there really people living under which there are, but they're not mutants, they're homeless people. There's like a whole, supposedly, this is like, I don't know if this is an urban myth. If you're from New York and you know this, tell me, but back in the day, around this time this comic came out, it was a very common kid theory, recess theory, or maybe it was even translated into a junior high or even a high school theory. And I can't remember who told me this. But they said, oh yeah, there's a whole society of like people living underneath the streets of New York. They said this about Detroit too. They said, oh, there's a whole underground people, and I'm just like, homeless people? Like, oh, well, yeah, but there's homeless, and then there's gangs, and there's all this other stuff going on underneath the city, and I don't know if that's true or not. I guess I've got Google, I can just look it up, but there was always like an urban myth, like, oh, that you couldn't really prove back in in the 80s because you didn't have the internet. Unless you knew somebody who lived in one of these cities and they had firsthand, knowledge of these people, you didn't really know. But it was intriguing. It was one of those stories you'd hear as a kid or a teenager, and it'd send your imagination on fire, and you would just and then you'd see like the Morlocks, or you'd see this stuff in comic books, and you're just like, it created like this whole like mythos, this lore in my head, which I can't really. I mean, I'd have to really think about what I was thinking about then, but I find it very fascinating, and I still do, even though I think a lot of it was just homeless people and drug addicts. I don't think it was many. There was, like I said, there were no mutants with mutant powers underneath the cities. Maybe there was. I don't know. I highly doubt it, though. But anyways, like I said, the artwork's great. This person really likes to draw Kitty Pryde's butt. I don't know how many butt shots we've come across of Kitty Pryde there, but yeah, okay. So let's go back. Let's finish this up real quick. So, okay, Savage Sword of Conan. I'll probably read it this month. I'm not going to read it because there's a bunch of stories in it. I'll read it at some point. and then I'll maybe talk about it later. I don't know. Maybe I'll just do a whole video on just Savage Sword and Conan. I don't know. The Gru, this is issue 5. I had this, and I think I read like the first 12. I didn't go back and reread it. I gotta say, they're great. I mean, Sergio Garnagonis is, I mean, he's very cool, and these stories are great. And I love the character, but you got to be in the mood for Gru. And I just haven't been in the mood for Gru lately. Again, we're gonna skip the Wally. Transformers, this is the British UK magazine. Time Spirits, if I couldn't get turned on by Black Dragon, Time Spirits wanted to do it either. So I think from now on in, unless you're a huge Epic fan, I'm probably not going to go over the Epic stuff very much. I might still hit Alien Legion, maybe Dreadstar, and that's about it. Or if something else pops up that piques my interest. But I got to say, some of these are just, it's not doing it for me. So real quick, let's close this out with which comics did I buy at the time off the spinner racks. I did buy the Alpha Flight. I'm literally in my mind picturing. I mean, this is a weekly thing, so there's a lot of things to picture in my head. But I can remember coming in to Rochester Book Center, walking around the register, walking through the door, looking at Kitty Land, going, I'll deal with Kitty Land later. Going through. Because when I got my comics, I'd go over to Kitty Land, see what new action figures. At this time, I was trying to, hide my action figure addiction still and trying to wean myself off of it. But Transformers were still hot at the time, so I'd have to make a stop at the Kitty Land and check out what's there. But, I was on a mission, and I came here and looked here, and I saw Alpha Flight, picked that up. I know I picked up the Amazing Spider-Man. I don't think... I know I didn't pick up any of the Epic stuff or the Star stuff, so we can rule that out. And again, the British stuff like Doctor Who magazine and UK. Actually, Doctor Who magazine was out, but I didn't read it at the time. And then obviously the UK stuff, no. And Savage Sword of Conan, I probably didn't. Like I said, I only had a handful of those physical copies of those. But the Dazzler, I probably didn't buy. The Captain America, I'm pretty sure I didn't buy. I probably bought the Micronauts. And that was probably it. Oh, and Gru. So I bought 4 comics this week in 1985. Alpha Flight, Amazing Spider-Man, Micronauts, and Gru. And that was it. So that was my week. What did I say, 14? We got 14? Yeah, week 14, the first week of April, 1985, Marvel Comics. That's my experience with them. So let me know yours. Tell me what you were reading. Like I said, if you got more insight on these Epic comics, let me know. If you're from Britain or England, or Europe in general, and you were getting these UK magazines, tell me your experience with them, because, I mean, that's very alien to me, and you probably were in Doctor Who, I'm assuming, too. But tell me your experience with that, because I obviously didn't have that experience. I don't have that experience now, but if you were that age and you were experiencing that stuff firsthand at that time, I'd like to know some stories. Hit me up on that. It would be nice to see somebody from Britain do a YouTube channel and talk about the what they were getting over there and how it was formatted and stuff. I'm just interested, because I know it was kind of like Japan. I mean, I know that the UK would put out these magazines that would they were usually like a couple of months old, or like a month. They weren't like fresh like they were in the United States, but they took like these American properties like Transformers, G.I. Joe, which I think was called Action Force or Action Force, and then the Marvel stuff, like the superhero stuff, and they would compile them in these magazine format, and they were usually like longer, and they were more like a multiple stories in one. From what I've seen, I don't know if that's 100% what they were. But, yeah, just curious to know. Otherwise, alright, I guess I'm going to yawn anyways, but we'll wrap this one up. Yeah, we got week 15 coming up. We'll do that one, and then we're into April now, so we are 4 months into the year, in the 4th month of the year. No shit. And we're plugging along here, so I'm intending to keep doing these videos every week until the year's up, and we'll see how long that lasts and how everything is and how much people are not watching these videos. So if you're like and subscribe. I don't like to bug people like that in every episode, but hey, like and subscribe if you like this stuff, and let me know your opinions on some of this stuff, or stories, anecdotes. You can rip on me, whatever you want to do. Make fun of my Band-Aid head. All right, but I will catch you guys on the other one. Bye bye.